2 buttons, but we only have one on here.
Oh, wow.
We're not doing the recorder anymore.
Oh, we're not?
So we record via this, so we don't need to do it twice.
Yeah.
Oh, so as long as that red light's on, it's miking us? Yeah.
It's about.
All right, yeah, red.
It is red?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, it's November 6th at 6 p.m. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We got everyone here. Hi. Okay, any deletions or additions to the agenda?
The only addition that I would have from our side is, since we put the OSBA election stuff out, you have a choice. If you're ready, you could make it an action item tonight and just vote and be done with it. Or you can bring it back in December. We have until December 15th to register it.
Okay,
So I would leave it to the board whether they wanted to take action and felt comfortable voting tonight, or if you guys wanted to wait until December.
I'm comfortable voting tonight.
yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, so then we could make that an action item. And
Okay.
that's would be the only modification that I would have at this point, other than I know there's discussion about maybe future meetings. We
Yes.
can have that at the end.
Yes, I do want to discuss that.
I will we approve the agenda.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, community comments, was there anyone on the seat out there? There's nobody in here.
Well, there's people in here.
And there's nobody that,
You guys
the
are
regulars,
nobodies.
the regulars.
Oh, Jenny signed in, she's presenting, so.
Oh, you're presenting, okay. Got it. I was like, wait, why does that look familiar? Yeah, it's gonna be number.
All right, so Sherry. Yeah, how we're doing.
Oh,
Right to it. Like it. Okay, I don't know if any of you have looked at your email in the last half an hour, but I sent a corrected report for these only because the charts were wrong. And it looks funny, so,
What was the correction?
And you
Yeah.
printed.
thank you.
These are corrected?
Yeah.
those
Oh,
were-
great, okay,
Good,
thank you.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fast.
She's just way too efficient.
Sure, no doubt.
So. Nothing real exciting to report on. We're getting into tax season, so it's good to see the money rolling in, starting to, and it's gonna push those revenue numbers up a bit, make things look even better. So, does anybody have any questions about the reports?
But the fact that we get more money from taxes makes no difference. Is that right?
I'm sorry, what?
The fact that we get more money from taxes makes no difference because we then get less from the state.
True, yeah. And once we get to a point where the formula and our ADM, and we're getting close. Where we receive more money in taxes than what the formula allows for, we're gonna have to start paying the state.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow,
Just something to think about.
that's amazing.
Yeah, we can't have a combined total more than what the formula allows, so. Maybe our enrollment's gonna grow so much that that won't be an issue.
That change has been in place for a while, the leveling so that affluent communities didn't keep all their tax revenues and just keep providing better services, so they go into one pot and it equalizes out across the state.
If you don't have any questions, I wanted to, I know last week or last month, I think we talked a little bit about the PERS rates going up. And I wanted to just tell you what those new numbers are gonna look like. Currently, our tier 1 and tier 2 members, which are anybody that's hired before 2004, I think, but I can't remember for sure, might be 2007. Those rates currently are 9.51% of our payroll. They're going to 21.16%.
Holy.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Explain that again.
Did I hear that?
They're
So-
current,
so we're gonna have
From
so there's um. 25 school districts who bonded against their PERS rates back 20 years ago, so we did it in 2007. So it expires in 2 years. Because of the debt service incurred and how it compounds in the last 2 years, our rates have been compounded, so we are one of 25 districts that will be seeing double-digit increases in our PERS costs next year. Well, next 2 years, the next biennium. We're not the worst is Gladstone, they have 17%. We're just over 10. It's about a $1.2 million roll-up hit on us without no new service, no anything. So it is thanks for bringing up, actually, I talked about it today in our superintendent coffee. So it is a real thing that we've already had dialogue about, you know, budget, where do we look? We are not gonna panic until the governor releases her budget. They're anticipating the average increase, because the average increased a lot more than they anticipated as well, that will be probably added to the state school fund budget, so there will be some reduction in the burden. But it is real, we're looking at other options, interest rates are high right now, so we're not even sure if, like, sometimes with a bond, you can roll the debt service into a new bond and spread it out for a while and reduce the impact. So we're looking at if that's possible. We're looking at a lot of options, but right now, yeah, it's gonna be a big hit on us, moving forward. So,
Wow.
And that's the new normal, that becomes that. way
well,
every
for
year.
25 other districts who, and for whatever reason, well, it's that bonding and the debt service and the way it was structured in these last couple of years. So what helped us for the last 18 years is now coming to not be so nice.
in the long run, it was worth it.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
we're just gonna have to,
So
Figure out our
we're not
options.
panicking yet until we, you know, the administrators, we start looking at spending trends, what can we do? We are also getting the state school fund, depending on where it comes in, will tell us what we're able to roll up to. When we get closer in the spring and we're looking at all those, so there's a lot of things to change and a variable to figure out before we need to panic. So we're gonna look at it, be mindful of it and keep moving forward.
Who's on? Is that just like the two of you figuring it out, or do we have?
Well, we've talked about it multiple times at our administrative, well, I mean, it's our budget. I mean, ESD is, they're our fiscal management agent, so they do our payroll, but they're not our budget. I mean, it'll be a conversation when we get a proposed budget from the budget committee about how we're making a balanced budget. I mean, you guys will be in that conversation as we keep moving forward. Right now, the conversations have been, hey, if we don't need subs, let's maybe try to save on our sub costs for the year, and let's try to reduce some of, I mean, so we're looking at things. That being said, we also don't want to panic and freeze everything. We have to serve our kids this year, right? So it's that conversation of just being mindful of our budget, and if we can improve our roll up, it's gonna reduce the impact for that next biennium.
So is that reflected?
No,
on
not
here?
in there at all. No.
Yeah.
What's in there is the approved budget from last year. We're already thinking about next year's budget. Yeah.
But it's gonna go up by it's basically over $1 million. Of
Yes, correct.
liability to this school district to cover our PERS costs,
Yes.
our increased PERS costs.
Yes. One of the districts that I was talking to,
Oh,
they're smaller than us, and they said it was gonna be 1.5, so they have a larger percent increase. And then Gladstone, who is a little bit bigger than us, but they're anticipating to be a $4 million hit on their budget. And Gladstone's not much bigger, they're the ones with the 17% hit. So it is, and they have a brand new superintendent, his first 3 months on the job, and he gets hit with you're gonna have a $4 million reduction with no real rationale other than roll up.
so to look on the positive side, we can count ourselves lucky.
Yeah. I'm trying to make lemonade, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I,
Only $1 million.
So, so more to come on that. We're looking.
Yeah, I mean, we're not budgeted for that at all then, you're saying, because there's not even a
Well,
line.
it isn't this year's budget. We're
That's
talking,
next year's budget.
we're
but
talking
we won't be
25,
able to
26.
Yeah.
see.
And one that comes.
we're just anticipating that as an increased roll-up expense for the next budget.
It's tricky, right? Cause this year we already tightened things to try to, with the 500,000, right?
Yeah,
That would-
so,
Yeah, okay. Great, thanks for the heads up.
yeah,
Yeah,
This
I mean,
is-
I will say that
I'm
even
glad I'm
with,
not the budget committee chair.
even,
That poor guy.
I would say that even
Yeah, no.
with this year's budget, we were able to move a pretty, I mean, I don't think we're feeling it
Yeah.
per se. And so I think that's our conversation about where do we get at this point? And when we get more firm numbers, I mean, depending on the governor's budget comes in, that can have a huge impact on how much impact it's gonna have on us as well.
Yeah.
So, and so will our, you know, we tend to, we'll get into the enrollment one in my report, but we shrank a couple kids, we tend to grow after Christmas break. And so it'll depend on enrollment, I mean, all of those projections will all play into that building the budget for the next year. So,
right?
Sherry, would you explain the numbers that are in red?
That is just currently the difference between revenue and expenditures.
Okay.
because we haven't gotten all of our state money yet,
Right.
we've got our taxes.
And
but-
that's county, I mean, that's taking into account our contingency. I mean, it's subtracting that from the revenue too.
Right.
So it doesn't mean we're out of money. It's just showing where we're at right now as far as revenue that we've received and the expenditures we've had to pay.
Well, I mean, should we be creating a line item immediately? Like, I feel like we need to start planning as fast as.
I don't think so. I mean, I think when we get there, we're having discussions right now, again, administratively about what those things may look like. The reason it's a little premature in my mind is, I mean, again, let's just say the governor budget, I don't think it'll come in at this, but let's say it comes in at 12 billion. We are at 1.2 this year. That's a hefty increase, right? I'm not saying it will, but there's some conversations about where they start. And one of the biggest things they're looking at is fully funding special education and adding that into the state school fund when it costs to fully fund special education. If they do that, we could end up at 12 billion. And so I don't want to, again, start cutting services to kids this year if we are not going to be in trouble. So we got to wait till we get a little further into the budgeting process to recognize where we are. We do a bargaining this year as well. That's going to have an impact. So, I mean, there's things that are going to impact, but it's, I think, too early to sound the
Yeah,
alarms.
I wasn't saying we should start cutting services.
Yeah.
I just mean it should be permanently on our radar at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, it
If
is.
it just
Mine.
says-
It's on our radar.
Right, well, I get it. I mean,
And I really didn't mean to cause a panic. I just, in the world of education in Oregon right now, it's a huge topic. Kind of just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And that, but we are definitely aware, definitely planning, and very hopeful that the state does something to help out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
do you know how much it is statewide that we're talking about?
The statewide average was a smaller increase because it just, and I would have to, I kind of focused on our numbers. I don't know what the increase was
Yeah.
across on the average.
I don't mean
Uh,
average, I mean like how many millions of dollars through for
Oh.
the state are we talking about? Because if we're hoping the state's going to help us,
Yeah.
that's a
no.
big
It's-
number.
It is a big
Yeah.
number.
Yeah, at least
20 plus 30,
Yeah.
an extra 4, so
I-
at least
for-
30,000 or 30.
30 million.
I've also lobbied with Morgan Allen, who's
Yeah,
our
probably
lobbyist.
more than-
The difficulty is
It's good.
the rainy day fund for education. There's legislative triggers for that. Nothing can happen to that money without legislative work. And because I'm like, why don't they just take $1 billion out of we have an 18% rainy day fund right now for education at the state level. And I'm like, why don't they just take that and it impacts everybody and buy down the PERS unfunded liability? That would help everybody's rates, but to do that would take legislative action. Quite honestly, the legislature is not gonna step in the PERS bucket, right now with the public, because it's not a popular thing to step into. So, unfortunately, we will be shouldered at some form the burden of much of that cost. So we're looking at some options that we're gonna explore internally. We'll look at our budget as we keep moving forward. It is just the awareness that, it's a big hit moving forward.
Yeah,
So,
and that's a permanent hit.
2 years.
2 years, the biennium.
But
And then
it
after
will
that, our
increase after
bonding
that.
is done, and then we would have to make a decision. We'd have to make a decision whether we rebond. So if the bonding rates make sense and we could do it now and buy down the debt service, that might be a proposal we bring to the board. If at the end of the biennium, we may just fall back in the regular pool because the projection is at 2030, the PERS rates are supposed to start improving, which means
Because people will start dying or what?
the tier one folks have more tier one
Maybe we
folks
should
have
hire
died
some
off.
hitmen is what we should.
Right, and so, that's
Stick around.
the grim reality. But
Is that on
that's,
tape?
that's the forecast is 2030 that the rates would improve, so there'll be conversations around it moving forward at some point.
We should.
So we'll keep you posted as we get more information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You're right about that. You're excited about that. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Don't even ask me excuses.
All right, so administrative reports. Do we want to start with?
I was gonna go first, but now I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. Do you have good news, or if not, we don't want to hear it? No.
Mine is in combination with some of the board business that. We were just gonna flip it up at the transition of introducing what these guys are talking about.
Okay, great.
So if you could, I think you have these in your packet, so if you could scroll up a little bit. So the budget, isn't necessarily what I need to talk about, but I was here a couple years ago. And, just for you to remember, what we're spending on, that's all that's for. I'm here today as the integrated grant program administrator, and we have to submit our annual progress reflection report. So that's what this is, and it was only 2 questions. But we have to present this to the board, and then we have to publish it on our website. And they ask us, the first question is about how's things going with your targets, and essentially there's a few paragraphs discussing that, and that's what the principals have been informing you about the past couple of presentations, and they'll probably, I think they're gonna do a little bit of that tonight, so I'm not gonna steal their thunder, but essentially we're continuing to improve our scores, our comprehension scores, and they'll talk about that. The second one, though, Kurt's allowing us, and he's also allowing us to be a little bit more expressive on our frustrations. And so that was the second question, asked about the barriers and challenges from keeping us in progress. And so I think what we've learned during this is that there's so much work, and the guidance is so thick that it really does, while the intent is to be creative and to give us money to be creative, it actually doesn't. And so we put together a little bit of verbiage to try to be tactfully and express our frustration with that. And I've already met with ODE, and in a different capacity, we had to go over three different questions, and I used some similar language, and they were appreciative
This is,
of it.
Joe, I want to say that the answer to that question I thought was so well responded. I really did. I just think you did a very good job in doing that.
Well, thank you, good. Okay, so that, so that's what that's about. Thank you for saying that. You never know. I think Kurt's been great at being transparent. I know that Kurt says stuff and behind closed doors and his frustration and phone calls. And I thought, we're trying to get things to change. And after doing this visit in Washington and the creativeness that Washington's allowing, and we have a little bit of a relationship with some good people from ODE, who I work with. You know, we have a lot of complaints with some of the processes, but I feel pretty supported through this process for ODE, which allows me to be a little bit more frank with them. And so we're asking them to start pushing things and allow us to price things, which brings me to the next part of mine was calendar committee during board business or
Any
any
questions?
question, yeah, with
Yeah.
that.
No, I think that,
I got a really quick question, if it's a quick question, if not, I'll call you later, but, I just was curious, because there's all these, the line items of very specific hires, but then like the top bucket, there's just a bucket of like, hire teachers to sustain low student teacher ratio in elementary school, so I just was, is that a specific hire, or was that just?
That's the theme.
That's the theme we have in another report. We just keep the specific folks that are there so we can give specific numbers. It's not required for this
okay,
report though, but we
okay.
know when we say that. And that's what I almost didn't do that because it is some specifics. And so I didn't want to talk about individuals too much. But we know exactly who we're paying for. That-
It has to meet the goals. This is all, the integrated grant combined the student investment account, that's where most of the money is coming from. But it supposedly combined 5 different reports and grants that we were getting to consolidate and streamline and make reporting easy. So we went from 5 15-page reports to one 80-page report. It's,
Yeah, it's actually 9 programs maybe involved. I think we only have 5, but
Yeah. So that's been the feedback. Actually, I'm on the small school district consortium, and that's been the feedback to ODE is how silly it is that they said they were streamlining it, making it easier for us, and it's actually, and every time there's a carve out, a grant, it's a 20-page report that each district has to do to apply for and do quarterly reports. And I mean, I think I shared with you guys last year the amount of ODE reporting that we have, like 32 a month that we have to file with them in some months that on various departments throughout the years, like 110. I mean, just, it's become burdensome and we're trying to give them that feedback. Unfortunately, it's typically in the legislation, so they're trying to be the go-between. So, anyway. Sorry for my bird luck.
No, that makes sense. Figured there was an explanation.
Yeah.
The other one was, what was indirect? I mean, it's just.
oh, that's usually what we pay for administrative things. We use it
It's like
for
a
our audit.
miscellaneous bucket.
Yeah, we use it for our audit. We don't use monthly though.
Yeah.
We
No,
can
it
pay
was a
some
small-
administrative.
a small percent.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
we're allowed to use more. We just don't.
Yeah, right.
cool.
So that's that, more integrated stuff happening at the end of the year, as we go through, the biannual process of getting community feedback. So if you remember a couple years ago, we had these presentations of what the community was telling us. We'll have something like that,
Good, excellent.
in the spring.
Thinly veiled.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that was for board business is that we're recruiting a calendar committee participant this year. I think that what we're gonna be creating the regular calendar, and if things talking about creating this, we're working with ODE, we're gonna create maybe an alternative calendar this year. So it might be a few more meetings than it. We had some rhythm in the past 2 years. I think we're gonna slow things
Yeah.
down this year.
Yeah. I know he's on the committee. I would like to at least attend those meetings if I can, whenever they are.
Okay.
Public meetings, yeah.
We'll push both down.
Yeah, then we'll make sure one of us is actually there,
Present.
There.
which would be a big step forward.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So if there's something you want to swap, then.
Yeah, we'll make sure board members are there. If you give us some good notice.
Yeah,
Give us
do you
give us some
have
good
those
notice.
dates already? Meeting dates? for-
No, I haven't. I was waiting for everyone and I gonna put that out now.
Okay.
actually,
You're gonna-
the next week.
When will those start? After the holidays?
No, I would really
Before,
like to
yeah,
start,
before.
our community likes it, right after the holiday break, they start thinking about the next holiday.
The holiday break.
They want it now.
Yeah, so we try to get it done by the end of the February, March, depending.
Usually by the March meeting,
March.
we like to, before spring break, so.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll have the work for sure.
okay, great.
We got it done in 4 meetings last year. I don't anticipate it'll be that quick this year though.
Yes, I've heard rumors. We have alternate ideas.
Yeah. Which will be fun. I have to think process on how to facilitate that.
For the record though, I didn't really notice that there was a in-service day after Halloween. That was brilliant. I highly recommend. That was great.
Yeah, I think that was a Joe thing.
I just,
As I recall.
but that was
It worked.
amazing.
Yeah.
If we could just do that every year, that'd be great.
Yeah,
We have a certain amount of work days that we have that we can maneuver, and yeah, that was, I believe it was the elementary school going.
I
Hey, we can put it on that
They're
Friday after Halloween, that'd be great.
the high school doesn't.
Yeah.
I know, I was like, whatever, it's all the same, but yeah. Anyway.
Cool. Thank you.
Let's you go next.
Alright. I have what I believe to be the most unassailable station ever.
Yeah, that was a good point, or for.
Oh, sorry. So, elementary is busy conferencing, but we wanted to take a second just to highlight the upside of having new neighbors. And so recently we had an opportunity to connect programming across, across the street. I was gonna say across the district, but both. And so as we were moving towards Halloween, we picked up from a project that started, I think it started last year, but partnership where essentially the way the project works is elementary school students, first graders have the opportunity to create sort of what for them would be some kind of a monster. And they do a 2D drawing of that monster. And then unbeknownst to them, the drawings get passed on to high school 2D, 3D design students who then turn that drawing into a full creation. So
That's so cool.
yeah.
Call them newsletter, so.
Anyway, so Paige and Bethany, the two art teachers, it seems straightforward, but the amount of coordination in terms of, and I actually growing to find that the complexity of first grade movement and where they are when they are is dramatically more complex than high schoolers. So so this is what we're talking about.
Oh my God.
So it's got a couple, and there's would have been a lot of slides to show all of them, but these are some good examples.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Fun.
Yeah, and so the beauty of this is that the high school students get to eventually, we're able to walk across the street on Halloween, just because it was on a school day this year, and actually connect and present their what they've worked on. And it's a lot of work. Some of these was a lot of work and a lot of attention to detail and just time that they put in. And so the beauty of this is, seeing programs that are connected across the district and just being able to have, as soon as the first graders in front of you, it really doesn't matter how cool you think you are. You just melt like everyone else. And so it was very great to see that happen. So a lot of smiles and warm glowing faces. Anyway, any questions about that program? I mean, not a program, but it was an opportunity. We in our last staff meeting recognized people that were involved in it.
Not about that one,
Cool.
but I thought, I read the article about the bats
Oh, yeah.
and
also
the
pretty cool.
connection
Yeah.
between the
Yeah,
elementary school, the middle school, the high school, and how everybody is involved in that.
yeah,
I just thought that was wonderful.
yeah. All of that is so
I think
facilitated by proximity.
yeah, the proximity and we thought there'd be some efficiencies, but it's turning into more of a creative culture, right? I mean, that whole belong piece is really magnified because that interaction is a big deal, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
really kind of like doing the graduation walk and some of the other things we'd started. this kind of interaction really creates those connections to where kids might see themselves in the future and being a part of that school community. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah,
I know this is not yours. Comment. As the grandparent of a first grader, I saw her drawing and her completed work and then saw it through her eyes. It was a huge success.
Yeah.
A huge success.
That's so cool.
Very cool.
alrighty. And then just to follow up on Joe's piece, so some of the things, you know, that we report on are on track grades is kind of the biggest one that we lean on, just because it has implications for, you know, the final outcome with his crossing the finish line. And so before we were sort of focusing on mainly on ninth, and then the 12th grade is obviously graduation. And so this year, I just wanted to give you guys a sense of where we were. Obviously, we don't have any ninth grade data until we have our first term being done, so we're getting close on that. But I just wanted to give you a sense of where the other grades were at. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I won't identify which grade it was, but that with one of our grades there, I thought we were struggling a little more than we were. But I just went through and audited all our credits, and you know, for kids that were deficient relative to the progress towards the required amount for graduation. And yeah, so these numbers track pretty closely with where we've tended to end up with our graduation. So I mean, it seems fairly logical. And anecdotally, the 12th grade number right now, I can think of, you know, those are individuals, that 5%, you know, that aren't on track. And I can think of, you know, 2 or 3 kids that they're close, but you know, they're gonna have to grind. But you know, that, so I would hope that number will tick up even further as we get closer to graduation. So, and then some of the pivots that we've done is just giving our grade level teams a little bit more autonomy to program how their interventions work best for their team. So giving them some flexibility with how they use their time. 9th grade, you know, is maybe meeting more frequently but for less time, because they just feel like more opportunities to connect on who needs to be intervened with is and like having a chance as adults to connect more frequently on whether or not the things that they're doing are working. Something they agreed on. It wasn't something that we opposed, but their team agreed on it. And then 10th grade they chose to focus a little bit more on actually taking a lot of time and spreading it further throughout the week to where they can like, instead of using some of their time that they would be meeting, they're saying let's meet less and talk to the kids more. And so that's just another innovation that they looked at. And then I think we've talked about this before, but our 11th grade team is kind of it's sort of, you're at the point now where you have to be thinking kind of like the senior support team, in as much as you're really just drilling down with very specific students and specific pathways that need to be developed before it gets too late. So yeah, so it's kind of
It's awesome. Really.
right.
Do you
And
see
then-
that it tends to be the same students moving year into the next, you know, year to year? Or is it a different?
It can be,
Is that the-
but it varies. Yeah, we'll see kids that'll bump out of this and you know, and then we'll see.
Cause it seems pretty, I mean, it's a similar percentage the whole way, so I mean.
Yeah, but
that-
it's
that
not
that
per se
means
the same
Not the
kids.
same
Like I
kids.
can think of a senior or a junior right now that 2 years ago, I wouldn't have, in my mind, I would have been thinking about them as being, you know, in this orbit of approaching off track. And in that students, you know, this student had some hardships and things they went through, and just had, if you have one term where you get, you know, kind of behind, you can get off track fairly quickly in terms of not being ready to take, you know, maybe the next section of English or section of math. And then, so yeah, and the opposite of that can be true too. I can think of kids that, and I was doing this, double checking the seniors. I was again pleasantly surprised by kids that I thought were further afield than they ended up being. So some of them worked hard over the summer and different things to put themselves in a better spot. And I would say, just for context, the 11th and 12th grade numbers, if we were to include youth build, would probably tick down maybe 1% or 2. And the reason I don't include them is because Mostly because it's very hard for me to discern it without actually being in the room with their counselors and them personally to know what their path is that they've created, because their paths just look different. You know, they're attaining credits differently than our kids do. And so they might be, whereas for us, a senior coming down the stretch is, you know, we're looking at if a kid isn't in that 17 to 18 range, then we got to really have a plan. And at youth build, they might be in the 15, 16 range, but they have, you know, maybe more options available to them in terms of what they can finish in a given session or year. So
For context, it looked like based on the enrollment numbers, it looks like there's for 10th to 11th, it's like 4 kids, it's basically the equivalent of 4 kids, and then 12th grade is like 6 kids.
yeah, that's
So
right.
it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not-
and not
it's
to,
not insurmountable.
not to, you know, get too complicated here, but the calculation we use for on track is pretty credit specific. It's credit based.
Yeah.
And there'll be other factors, other variables that we have to look at related to specific class requirements. You know, as far as
It's
like.
one of the conversations we've had, a freshman on track. If you're in an AB block 8-period day and you need 6 credits, you're on track, but if one of the classes you failed was language arts or your algebra math requirement, those kids tend to be on a different trajectory and need different supports than a kid who failed some elective classes, but passed all the requirements, right? So there's a difference with, and even the state doesn't delineate, they don't say all requireds passed, they just say 6 credits earned.
Yeah.
And so even that is, there's nuance to the discussion as you get.
So we have some things built into our
Yeah.
programming that really help mitigate, like, for example, the language arts piece. The fact that our kids can block their language arts, science and PE in junior year with IED.
Yeah.
They could get that full credit of language arts in the afternoon with IE, and then they can backfill like a creative writing or another class the same year. And what a slip up freshman year now is resolved. So we've got good.
No, I think our schedule does help.
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't saying it was a problem for us,
Right.
I'm just saying that the way the state's created the calculation really isn't a true. I mean, a lot of people went to the AB block an 8-period day because it made their freshman on track rate look really good. So it's.
And for me, as I'm looking at the data, one of the things that becomes apparent that I can see just in literally going through individual transcripts, what I can see is just it translates fairly quickly into a number of, failed classes, and we don't really have a ton of students, especially like last year, our freshman group. I was just blown away at each term that it was like single digits in terms of, total failed classes. So there's a lot going on in that grade level, just because we know that 9th grade, if you can, leave 9th grade in good shape, chances that you've got a good table set for you, so.
Who's on a grade level team? Who makes up a grade level team when you call a grade level team?
So for 9th and 10th grade, it's more straightforward because it's the core teachers for science, language arts, math, social studies. And so you've got at least 4 people that are.
And a counselor is assigned?
Yeah. Well, the counselors float, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll say, okay, Rick will say, I'm going to 9th today, you go to 10th, and then they'll swap the next time. But it's basically the 9th and 10th grade, because core subjects track to, as far as like 9th grade English, 10th grade English, algebra, geometry, a lot of the teachers know that they're gonna be seeing all the kids in that grade level in a given year. Whereas once you get to junior, senior year, and it's a lot of teachers, it's a lot of our elective teachers that work those teams because they span kind of the gamut. And we'll still have a few core teachers that have most of their assignment is upper level classes, and then they'll tend to be on those 11. The 12th grade team is our both counselors, the counseling secretary, our senior support kind of person, which is also our dean of students, so Mr. Runko, Susie Sini, who runs SEO, myself, and so occasionally the SRO, but and so that's just it's not as teacher focused, it's more we're programming at this point for students that are off track, like we're really having to make very specific decisions about specific kids.
Good.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm, it's starting to speed myself all the time. The thought to my son's band concert.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Bob Morgan, the principal, do you wanna do admin?
I don't care, it's up to you. Does anything pressing for people? No, yeah, no.
I can be pretty quick.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll be pretty quick, but I'll be short and sweet.
Sure.
I don't have a presentation,
And Tim does have conferences as well.
yeah, we have a parent teacher conferences going on. Remember, one of our goals is 85% of our parents getting there. We'll
Yeah.
see. It'll be posted.
Yeah,
But I was just gonna give you a little bit of information based on what Joe's report talked about, kind of how some of those dollars are used at the middle school. So if you look through the report, there's a number of different things and we shared some of them. But one that jumped out to me was the iReady and Oregon Data Suite. The money that pays for that comes out of that grant.
Huh.
So all the data that Joan shows and that I show, and now the high school is starting to show, is paid for out of some of those grant dollars. I don't speak for that, okay. So it probably runs anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year in fees to
Wow.
gather that data and have all those assessments. And the more we expand it, the more it costs. And this year it is expanded up to the 9th grade. It's been really valuable for our teachers to really evaluate their work and what they're doing. Another component that came out of there was the Oregon Data Suite. I think it was similar to the same line item as the iReady. That's another chunk of money that pays for a group from, I believe it's the Willamette ESD. It's another ESD that helps districts organize their data. And in one spot, it will show our iReady scores, our state testing scores, it'll show our attendance rates, all in one kind of dashboard.
And customize a dashboard for you.
It's been really helpful for our teachers, and we talk about those grade level success teams that Steve was mentioning. They drill down on that pretty hard. They look at attendance. The only piece that has been hard on the data suite is we try to track D's and F's because of how important that is for freshmen on track through all the grades. Our Synergy doesn't quite upload at the rate that we need it to. We really are just getting trimester grades into the Oregon Data Suite. But otherwise, the Oregon Data Suite has been another super valuable tool for tracking kids and then coming up with some interventions for them. Another thing that came up, there was some EA support, and I'm not sure if this is the EA or not, but I know that we use EAs in a lot of different ways, and EA is an educational assistant, not a certified teacher, but they can have a major impact on kids. In one spot in the middle school is it's called Problem Solve University Room, which is it's kind of a regulation room for when kids having a rough day. But it's so much more than that because the EAs in that room schedule a lot of one-on-one check-ins with kids. And they do it weekly, sometimes daily. Let me see your planner. How are your grades? Where is your missing assignments? It's like an extra person. I mean, I want to say counselor, but not a social emotional counselor, more just kind of an academic counselor for those students for check-ins. That has been really impactful as well. Some of the money on there comes for our middle school counselor. Middle school counselor has been really integral. One, just taking care of the social emotional needs of all of our kids, but in terms of data and what we track, it started a 6-year plan where the kids start in 7th grade, really developing a 6-year academic plan. And they start to pick elective based on what they're interested in. And the whole goal is to lead them into one of the CTE paths at the high school. So they at least have a vision of their future to talk about being inspired. The counselor's been critical in that. And the last thing I would mention are enrichment classes. It doesn't talk about teachers pay at the middle school, but we have allocated FTE to when we see kids in on those data screens that are below grade level, rather than tracking them into a lower group. What we do for most grades is we keep them in the same group, but then we add another class, an enrichment class, to help backfill the holes that the kid has either in math or reading. And last year was the first year that we had it totally filled for all grades 6, 7, 8, math and reading. And so anytime you put a plan into place, it really does take, I would say, 2 to 3 years to really see the results. And so hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll see some major results from that. And one of the first years, and talk about data, and this is in the written component of Joe's report, we had a huge win with our reading scores, when we focus school-wide high yield, we saw our students go school-wide. We had an 18% increase in kids that were at grade level in reading in 1 year,
Wow.
Wow.
which was really a huge win for the teachers and all the work that they'd set up over the past few years. And that comes from all the work that we do, from avid high yield instruction to the grade level success to the data that we collect. And yeah, some of the dollars from all that has really been instrumental in helping the middle school move kids and get them ready to walk out the doors and become freshmen. That's all I got.
Great.
Another reading program, so like the fourth graders that help the first graders or something like that, do we have that like in high school or middle school or without carrying it all?
We have mentorships that happen where we mentor 8th graders with 6th graders. This year, last year, it was 7th and 5th and 6th. In our belong classes, is it geared for reading? Not specifically, it's more geared for like doing homework together, looking
Okay.
at missing
But,
assignment.
okay, yeah.
So, some of our enrichment classes are blended grades depending on where they're at. So there can be a little bit of mentorship.
Yeah.
There.
Cool. Anyone have
Yeah.
any questions?
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
sure.
Thank you. Back to conferences.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay,
totally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Come on up, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'll help. Thanks. Back to school.
So is this for, are we doing? the
Yeah,
Vision
So
22?
for, yes, this will be, it's on your board business as well, but it's also, Lorna is at the Synergy Conference. Speaking of data, Lorna's at the Synergy Conference, learning how to help better navigate data systems with our data specialists. So they're looking at how can we use and improve our data system. So she's back there right now. And so in light of that, we have a requirement through the Division 22 to present to the board as well. So these lovely people are presenting on behalf of both the requirement of Division 22 and for student services. So there you go.
Hi, everyone. I think we can agree that we like students not to be at school the day after Halloween as well. Nurses. I'm Trish Roy. For those of you that don't know me, I have had the great opportunity to work for Sisters School District as a nurse this is year 19.
And I'm Jenny Morris, the Sisters Elementary nurse, and I've been here for 4 years now.
So I just have we have a bit of information. As you're aware, Oregon State Board of Education adopted updates to OAR 581-02220 in June 2023, otherwise known as the Health Services Plan. It is a written prevention-oriented health plan for all students with a requirement of being updated annually. The revised OAR incorporates learning from school operations during the 3 years of COVID-19 pandemic response and recovery, and brings the rule into alignment with other current statutes and rules. The Health Service OAR codifies the importance of health in supporting equitable and well-rounded education for every student in Oregon. We have developed almost complete. A district health services plan should be complete tomorrow, hopefully. Submission deadline is the 15th of November to ODE. And one of the requirements is to present the information at a school board meeting where it's videotaped, and then Lorna will upload the video with the plan. The health services plan should be supported by our communicable disease management plans, as well as an updated student health services and requirement policy, JHC. And Jenny and I will continue to review the plan and the policy and make recommendations for your consideration.
Any
Great.
questions?
Yeah, any questions?
No, that's great.
We're here.
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
there we
nothing
go.
completed yet. I mean, nothing to really share with us as far as what that plan is yet.
Videotape. Getting
It
started.
is very close to
Very
being
close.
completed. It was completed before, and then looking at it, I didn't really feel that the verbiage was as strong as it could be. So just going back through, something, we had a little bit more time. I'm gonna share that with Jenny tomorrow and then, Sean Moore can make recommendations.
And then is that approved then by the state or is that an action item for the board here locally?
We have to,
Okay,
we
so
just,
they will, yeah, so
we just have to
we
say
just
we've
have to
seen
say
it.
we've seen it.
Yeah.
We talked about it.
There's evidence that we've talked about it.
Yes.
Not just
Video
Vision
evidence.
22's last time, but now additionally, we've talked about it. So
But when it's complete, then they'll forward it to, then we'll be able to access that link or we'll
Yeah,
talk
we
about it
can
at our next board
definitely
meeting.
share-
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Lauren, I can share that with you.
It'll be linked off the webpage.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Okay, where were we? So integrated.
Yeah.
Program, we did that.
Yeah, we did
The
that.
Calendar
The
committee,
calendar
we
committee.
did that. OSBA election, so we're on to,
Now, we have a superintendent report.
oh, are we gonna do that? I'm sorry, we skipped.
Well, maybe we finish our last piece of board business.
It is our last piece of board business.
Where do you guys want to do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Save the best for last.
Well, yes, the OSBA elections. That's.
All right, so there were some rules for me to follow on this.
What are your rules?
I don't know, I gotta find it. Sample scripts for a motion to cast, okay. So basically, we need to sample a motion to nominate a candidate for the OSBA Board of Directors.
Yeah.
So we have
I
this,
think we need to vote for a candidate. And I think there's. a
Well, we have
candidate-
one candidate.
yeah,
We
we,
have one candidate, so
right,
we can either
I think
so
there has to be a
Right,
I
motion.
move
name
that,
in, or-
that we nominate Lori Denzuka, is that correct?
right,
To sit on the Board of Directors at OSBA. That-
yes,
I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, now we nominate him.
no,
Now we're done.
That's it.
That was, okay,
We have to do the, but we need to do the resolutions as well.
yes,
Yes.
okay. I'm
So
confused.
resolution
Oh.
1 is to amend the OSBA due schedule,
Yeah, I need that.
but I'm not sure in what the amendment actually says.
OSBA has done some house cleaning in their structure and. I don't think there's any doubt that these are good things
These are the
to
resolutions.
make OSBA work better. My sense is we could pass all three of
Oh,
these
there-
resolutions in one motion.
There's some red ink
And-
back here. This is where they basically eliminated most things.
They've just kind of
It's
cleaned
just
it up
cleaning it up.
and made it
Right.
so it's up
There's
to
no
date
new policies, they're just
technically and-
Right.
And all that,
wordage.
so.
Okay,
I
Do you
I
wanna
move
read
that
through it,
we,
or do you,
no, I'm fine.
I move that we approve the three resolutions from OSBA in one package.
And I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's all three.
Yeah.
2, 3.
Yeah.
Type the name.
So then you just have to type the district, type the meeting date and boom.
All right,
Okay.
Do we need to approve the candidate who is running?
no, we need to
for
do superintendent. report.
Legislative Policy Committee?
Do what?
There. Lori is our representative on the board of OSBA, but there is also a legislative policy committee person who I think we need to support.
Oh, here it is.
Another lady from Jefferson County. You can check that out.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but if we need to, we have until December 15th, so we need to come back with that.
Right,
Okay.
I think we should check.
Say that again, what will we do then?
Then we.
What do we still have to do?
Okay. OSBA has a board of directors,
Yes,
and they also have from every region throughout the state a legislative policy committee member.
Mhm.
And we have a candidate from our region, from Jefferson County, who is willing to serve in that capacity. My sense is that we need to do that, I think, by the 15th of December.
We'll check into that. That
Yeah.
wasn't, I mean, it wasn't a part of the information that we got as far as something that, they might be able to be appointed by folks, but I'm not, so we'll double check on that
Yeah.
and see, but it wasn't in any of the information that we got that we needed to bring in front of the board. However, we will look at it. We have until next board meeting to do that as well, so we'll look into that. and-
December 15th.
Yeah, sorry about it.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. So, Kurt,
Yes, well,
let the
There's
fun
not
begin.
much- I'm gonna roll through these because you guys saw the enrollment report, the bond, again, we've spent the money, we're working through the glitches of the end of things, just so you guys hear from me, we ran out of propane at the elementary school the other day.
Oh,
Because, so Brian shows up and always checks the building for heat. And everything was at temperature, and between that 5 AM time frame and when they were serving breakfast. They ran out of propane, so they couldn't, so they had to make fruit parfaits, yogurt parfaits, so they got breakfast. But it was
Probably
just
healthier
a non-cook
breakfast. Yeah,
option.
yogurt.
And it turns out that Ed Staub didn't install a sensor on our tank. So they had no idea it was getting low, right? And we called them and they came out immediately, fielded it, and since I've installed a sensor on it so they can come out when they need to.
That's good.
But you know, the wonderful growing pains of a new building and something that didn't know, we didn't have something until it failed. Anyway, so that was our fun, it might have been yesterday morning. It was a fun, well, not a fun call to be a part of, but they
They lost the
responded very
seventh
quickly.
grade. Yeah. Lost
We
two
didn't,
seventh
we didn't
graders
panic,
picked
so,
up by the-
let's see, workforce housing, meeting with Rooted Homes and Woodlands, they're looking at a different unit again with the rising cost of construction. You know, we had committed for 2, we did 1, we're still in for another one. They're, right now, they're looking at like a threeplex. And so they're looking at smaller units, getting some other partners to come in on the different units. So we're still in the process of penciling out what that looks like and what the cost is, because they need to get it to a principal amount that actually the people in that income range can actually afford.
Right.
So we're still working through that process, but we're in there. Also met with, and I'm gonna forget Clayton's last name, from Northwest Housing Alternatives. He's the one doing the well house development about just, again, future discussions and options about what we might want to do. At one point, working through the University of Oregon plan on some of that elementary school property, looked like maybe the idea of putting some multi-unit buildings there. What could that look like? How would we partner with someone in doing that? Rooted Homes has worked with Clayton and the Northwest Housing Alternative, done some small homes with a mix of kind of apartment type living as well. And so, you know, working with how do we maximize, optimize some of those opportunities with the assets that we have. So still, you know, nothing official right now, but working through that process. So, and
So we're at least like 18 months or 2 years out. away
yeah, there
from
was
another
the
unit.
potential of trying to, there were some grant dollars that it sounds like they may have to target a different project that Rooted Homes had that they were gonna be able to bring to the table if we could have a project completed by a certain time. And I don't wanna throw anybody under the bus because it would have been a favor, but they were trying to get the county to expedite some plans. And if they could do that, they could have met the deadline, and the county pretty much said, yeah, no, we're not gonna guarantee expediting any plans for anybody. And so they'll have to put those funds off on a different project, and then which will slow down this project.
Right,
So it'll be a little longer window.
right.
So, and I think they still have to get enough partners in on the project to make it work for 3 units and, you know, so we would be guaranteed one of those units, but they have to have other partners involved, so we're still in the infant phases of getting that process moved forward, but we're in the works. And then looking at other opportunities, which I think, you know, at some point as we keep working with our kind of master's facility plan, looking at some of our assets and how we want to look at that, further conversations in a, you know, potential future work session about what could those things look like, how do we want to keep progressing. And I actually was trying to meet with what am I spacing? Jerry's father's name. Richard Holmes, the realtor. Huh? No, not Kevin.
Totally.
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
I'm getting old. It'll come to me. Who's the realtor whose office you use for
Yeah,
meetings?
but this building should be able to put some.
I don't know.
Like a contingency.
Okay.
Right.
Huh?
Across from Ace Hardware.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Kazar.
Kazar,
Oh, oh,
Tim
oh,
Kazar, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
like Jerry's dad, come on.
No, You're pointing over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim Kazar, yeah.
Tim Kazar about, we had talked about
It should-
getting some type of evaluation of what this property might look like in our kind of facilities planning and what that could look like. So still working on that as well. Haven't got, it'll take some time. He's in the middle of doing a lot of stuff. And so, trying to work to get a better evaluation of what this might be. But those are also to some degree ifs and buts, because it would require the city approving a rezoning of this property for it to actually meet its potential retail value. And as it is, it's zoned public, so there's restrictions on what could happen. And so it is a process, and it takes time. And actually, Tim has been through the process of doing that before, so he'll be a good advisor for us as we kind of continue to engage. And then Park and Rec is under construction. They're doing some remodeling. I think their timeline is pushed back a little bit. Usually they were talking about the first of the year, but now it's looking more like spring break for them as a move-in. You know, but that's moving forward, and they're excited about entering into a spring where they're in the facility and going through the summer and being there. So that's exciting. We did have conversations. We're looking at Treehouse Therapies as a partner over there as well. The city is looking at their definition of a community center, and their definition of a community center under policy is a little bit restrictive. And so they're taking some other language and looking at it and putting it to the council to maybe, if they redefine what a community center means, then Treehouse Therapies would be a group that could come in and offer mental health support to families in our community in that, without any other rezoning or any other issues. So we're working through that to create some stronger partnerships over there that we can move forward with. So that's still in the works. And I will leave it at that unless there's any other questions from the board.
Is the partnership with Treehouse, will that be sooner than, is everything pushed back to spring break at this point?
Treehouse, the partnership with Treehouse, no, not necessarily. If the city council amended their policy, they could immediately start utilizing the facility. So that's not a hang up as far as the construction goes for them. They would be leasing rooms in the A wing, which is not a part of the construction that's happening in the rest. So they would be able to get serving kids pretty quickly if that.
And they're leasing from SPRD, right?
That's right. So again, that's the difference I talked about last time.
Right.
Instead of us leasing the multiple agencies, that we lease to one and they call it a community center and they lease out because they do in their bylaws anyway, then it cuts through some of the red tape per se,
Right.
From the county level, and now we're hoping even at the city level. So we kind of got the blessing already from the county, and now we're waiting on the city to either change the code or give us the okay.
So the holdup is city council?
I think a code change some
It would
language.
have to be a language change.
It sounds like that's where they've landed, talking to Scott Woodford is the planner, so talking to him. You know, he thinks, again, trying to be completely transparent, he's like, well, maybe they get it through, but don't want to be accused of favoritism, so it'd be just better to put it in front of the council. And so, you know, I know that, the council's aware of it, and that I believe it is been a conversation. So whether it's, I'm not sure though when it's scheduled to be in front of them, but I know they've had conversations about it.
Because I mean, Treehouse Therapies is in a temporary space in Sisters already.
Oh, are they?
Yes.
I didn't know they were already doing that. Good.
So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because they're clearly thought they would be moving in.
Yes. Yes, and they
So
want a presence here, and, well, not just in our facility, I think I shared that before, they serve 0 to 18-year-olds. And they have a 400
Kid wait list.
kid wait list, right? And so it wouldn't just be kids from Sisters, not 400 Sisters kids, but they need space to serve kids.
Right. Yeah.
So that's, and I think they basically said they would probably take 5 classrooms in that A wing almost immediately to start serving kids. So it'll be nice, if and when that gets finalized. So,
Great.
yeah, I'll leave a lot of other tertiary meetings, you know, just early childcare stuff that's the houseless. The houseless resolution, we had a big houseless meeting at the elementary school a few Sundays ago, 95 community members attended. So, I mean, it's been nice. I will say the final part of the report, other than some of these big problems that we're partnering with, just, it's been great to showcase the school and let people who normally may not come into the buildings, come and see them. And we've been getting really positive feedback from everyone who's been in, including the 2 tours that we did. And the one was over 100, and the second one was probably, I don't know, 30 or 40. It was sizable as well. So it's been good to show the community what the bond paid for.
Great. Thank you.
And that is it. That's it.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Okay, so we're just up to announcements, yeah? No, consent agenda. Regular board meeting minutes. Anyone have concerns about the minutes?
I move that we accept the minute.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we adopted that. Okay, announcements. So I had some issues with conflict of time for both of our work sessions, and I also wanted to recommend that if we are meeting, could we just do the work sessions after our meetings? As opposed to being here a couple times in a month, just having a longer work session. I don't know what that means for everyone else, but to me, I'm already committed to being here, I
Yeah,
guess is
that'd
what I'm saying.
So for
And so,
you're talking about for the December 4th meeting,
correct,
strike the November 20th, and if we need a work session, just tack it on.
to December
after
4th.
that.
And we will, because we'll need to discuss Kurt's evaluation and get that process going. And I'm sure we're going to have some other business.
Okay.
That would be okay. Around the 18th gets very busy. So
Yeah, exactly. I
moving
mean,
that to the 4th would,
so we'll strike November 20th work session completely, and then move the December 18th work session to 7 p.m. Unless people want to come in
Which is
early
to follow, you mean to follow the regular board meeting?
to follow the regular board meeting.
Put it
Correct.
as to follow.
To follow the regular board meeting. Does that work for you guys?
And yeah, but we did that before. And
We
we'll
would
just-
do them beforehand sometimes, I think, because we were not wanting to maybe push them as late, but I know. there
And I'm
were
fine with that
restrictions About when people.
Well, we
get here.
could, and I would be open on December 4th with this much notice that we could start the board meeting earlier too, if you wanted.
Yeah, I would be fine with
open
that also.
If you guys are open to that, because I'm usually the one that's the,
So what does that,
I mean, I could.
what time
I
works?
could start as early as 5. If
We
that
can do
works.
5 to 6 in a work session and 6 during the regular board meeting.
I love that.
Why don't we do, can we do the regular board meeting and then the work session to follow? Because then we're not held with as much of a time constraint.
I think you can do it either way.
Would that be okay?
Say that again?
Do the regular board meeting first, because
First.
it's pretty organized, and then
Yes, I
that gives
agree.
us a
Then
little
we-
bit more
Yes,
flexibility on our
that
work
makes
session.
way more sense.
And we did,
That way we don't run over and have people waiting.
yes, yeah,
So we'll make that adjustment in the notification for next month. So
So
we'll
we'll
start
start at
5 o'clock,
5.
regular school board meeting, and we will not have any of our administrators there next month because they're gonna be over at the law conference, which I'm gonna leave for Thursday morning. So they're gonna be at the first session that starts that afternoon. And then we'll have the biology crew here presenting on their findings for the regular board meeting.
Okay,
So we'll have, you know, that group is usually pretty robust in its presentation.
yes,
So, just to give a look ahead, and so we'll have that, and then we'll do the work session, and then.
that's great. I
Great.
think that's great.
okay, that sounds good. Yeah,
Great.
that works for me.
Thank you.
Good.
More sense to me. All right, well, it is, thank you. 7:11 and we're,
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Awesome.
Probably needs that. My friend over here, I can't remember.
They did,
Yes,
yeah.
That time
Edie,
change.
Edie did it
He did it and Jeff seconded it.
and we all favored it.
I abstained.
And thanks, so you're going tomorrow too,
Yes,
Kurt?